Welcome to another episode of Strictly Business, the podcast in which we speak with some of the brightest minds working in the media business today. This is Andrew Wallenstein with Variety Intelligence Platform. The NBA season may have recently ended, but you wouldn't know it from the fever pitch at which this league continues to throw off headline-making news. There really is no offseason for people like this week's guest, Chiney Ogwumike, a seasoned ESPN analyst for both men's and women's pro and college hoops. And she knows well the world of which she speaks. She's a former WNBA All-Star, not only well into a second career anchoring shows like her new Disney Plus series Vibe Check, but also recently announced she's embarking on a third, producing for scripted TV. More with Chiney after the break, so stick around. We are back with ESPN basketball analyst Chiney Ogwumike. Thanks for joining us.
So glad to be here.
Cool. So, before we get your thoughts on the NBA and the WNBA as media phenomena, let's do some level setting for us, because I want to know where you currently are amidst all this madness. What is your summer itinerary in terms of basketball coverage? Where are you going to be? Where are you now?
First of all, thank you so much for this wellness check. Very few people ask. So when you were asking that question, I'm quite literally right now in Bristol, Connecticut, launching Vibe Check. And a lot of my friends and family have been checking on me lately because since March Madness, I probably have not slept in my bed in Los Angeles for 2 nights straight. It's been on the go in Bristol for women's college basketball tournament. Then we go to Tampa for the Final Four. I'm a Basketball Africa League ambassador. I went to Morocco for the start of their playoffs, and I came back, worked the WNBA draft, worked the launch of the WNBA season, went to the Western Conference Finals during the NBA playoffs, and then the NBA Finals, and then now leading to the NBA draft, and then Vibe Check. So I've been to many different cities, but it's the best time of the year. It's the intersection of so much. You've got hoops all over. The WNBA season, All-Star right around the corner. You think about the NBA, no nights off with the news, the conversation. And so I have been everywhere, but it's been a good time, so I can't complain.
That's great. So you mentioned the NBA. Let's start there. We'll talk more WNBA a little later. It just is so striking to me how, of course, every summer is busy, but this one in particular, is it especially crazy to you, given, I'd say, the volume, particularly of the potential trades that are out there?
So one of the most fun aspects of my job as a broadcaster is the commercial breaks. That's when the real tea flows at ESPN. We're all teammates. Like, how are you? What are you hearing on this team? What are you hearing on that team? What are you hearing on that player? And then you get some of the backstories. Our teammates are the best in the business. And I'll never forget, Shams was like, Chiney, it's going to be active. He's like,
you're talking about Shams Charania,
Shams Charania. Yes. My first few months. Can you imagine the year that he's had, the news he's broke? He said a couple times, and I started hearing it. I was like, okay, he's not lying. Like, these teams are going to really push for championships. And so when I think of the NBA, I think about, it's unfortunate reality that, like, my dad has a saying, every disappointment is a blessing if you allow it to be. He told me this particularly when I was coming back from injury when I was a WNBA player. And this last NBA playoffs, we saw a lot of catastrophic, really, injuries that happened to a number of players, from Dame Lillard to Jason Tatum, and most recently Tyrese Halliburton. But now it's created a frenzy where people feel like there's an opportunity to compete. The East is wide open. The West has consistently been wild. And now you're starting to see those machinations come to reality. The Bucks want to preserve Giannis Antetokounmpo. The Texas teams want to one-up each other. Like, it's really cool to be at the intersection of ambition, but also the reality that watching the Indiana Pacers, watching the Thunder, everyone's like, if we play our best basketball at the right moment, we have a shot. And now everyone is literally shooting their shot to make a team, to assemble a team to win.
I think what you just said hits on what is, to me, the key positive attribute propelling the NBA, but I think you also hit on something that is a big negative. So let's start with the positive, which is, I think what you're getting at here is the word parity.
Mm-hmm.
And I should say Parity, not Parody, meaning any team. I shouldn't say any team. There are so many teams. There are a few that aren't, have a shot. And I think, is that more interesting to you, do you think, to fans as a product than what the NBA maybe used to be, where it was a little more dynastic, shall we say, where one or two teams were dominant and everyone else was catching up?
It absolutely is more interesting to me when leagues have parity, because now the stakes are higher for each team and every move gets dissected. Now, I also will hold myself as a media member accountable, because when we do have parity, it's on us to tell the stories the best way, so that when the Indiana Pacers make it to the finals, everyone knows who their star player is. When Oklahoma City Thunder is having one of the most dominant defensive runs and SGA is collecting every Infinity Stone when it comes to awards, we want our viewers and our fans to know who these players are and how amazing they are. So I think it works hand in hand, like bettering us as media, which is why I focus on like the players, the breakdown, the essence of the game. Like that's what gets me going, you know? But at the same time, the teams are doing their jobs, because I believe there's a sense of urgency to win. You see the Magic making moves. You also see the Celtics in the spirit of parity now disheveling their roster because they understand the implications of being at the second apron, similar to what the Phoenix Suns are doing. So I do think it's a great thing. And also and I'm sorry, because I go on these rolls because I get so excited, but I also believe that fandom has changed because of the influx of digital media and social media. So maybe for you and for me, as we bridge our generations, when we watched a basketball game, it was one day, one or two games, and those were the stars that you had access to. Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Steph Curry. Like it was a handful that drove the interest. Now with social media, I talk to a lot of kids because I do kids camps and stuff like that. Their favorite player is LaMelo Ball because that's what they see and know. You go to an AAU tournament, they're all wearing LaMelo shoes. So the access to what fans, the next generation, think superstars are, it's different. It's very different. And I think it helps propel the game. So there are many more superstars. I know people debate the use of the word superstars. I don't want to get into that. There are many more stars into the mix. And I think now every team is starting to build around them and try to see if we can actually have a shot. And lastly, I'll say this: 7 different champions the last 7 years, 7 seasons in the NBA.
Right.
It's so much harder to have a dynasty. And so I think that's all feeding the beast, the engine of hoops.
But when you talk about the power of social media for the NBA, and I completely agree with it, I do also wonder what that means for the ESPNs of the world, or the new rights holders that are coming in this season, NBC Universal, Amazon. Do you feel to some degree, as a new generation comes to embrace the league, but through maybe more so social media than TV, what does that mean for the games? What does that mean for the value of the kinds of shows that you're anchoring on television? So
I was a post player when I played, and I love doing the dirty work. I love setting screens, and I loved winning, right? So I may not be the normal person to answer this, but I think of it twofold. One, I loved the acquisition of Inside the NBA, finding a way for us to preserve what I believe is the best product that is cuts through generations in that group, that Hall of Fame iconic group. But I also love competition. And I believe with more partners with basketball, whether it's NBC or Amazon, it forces us to be better. at ESPN. So one, at ESPN, I'm grateful that we own sports and the sports fandom. Like if you love sports, you know ESPN, you know the channel to turn to. You know the events are going to more often than not going to be there on a daily basis. But I also do like bringing in fresh voices, fresh perspectives, so that we continue to level up, our game. And it's going to be, I think it's going to be good. I think it's good, to spread the wealth, to share the wealth, but also make sure that we put out the product that sports fans want.
I mentioned earlier, the positive of parity, but I want to get back to the negative, which is when you talk about those catastrophic injuries to Tatum, Halliburton, Lillard. Is this becoming a problem for the NBA in terms of when you've got star attractions that are going down for like not just a few months, but entire seasons? I got to wonder whether League Commissioner Adam Silver has a problem on his hands.
One thing I do appreciate, I was working the NBA draft. Our fabulous host, Malika Andrews, was interviewing Adam Silver, and she asked him this question. And this is one thing that I believe makes Adam great. He doesn't duck from these issues. He actually goes and uses science and information to help create solutions. And so that was his response. We have a team of people that are looking into I believe they said there were 8 over the course of this season amongst all players, Achilles injuries, and why this is happening. Now, I'm someone who has dealt with Achilles injury. I tore my Achilles playing overseas in China. And so I know what that rehab is. And that is really a tough blow because you look at a team like Boston and you're like, okay, would they be making the moves they're making if Jason Tatum were healthy? Now, I know that luxury tax and new ownership, maybe the case is they'd still be making different these same choices. But from my vantage point, and this is purely my opinion, I think those things happen obviously with fatigue. And if there's a way to build out pockets of the NBA schedule, and I'm going to just say pro hoops, you can include it in the WNBA as well, because we've had a couple of ACLs, which are tied to anatomically the body of a woman that people are researching more now. If we build out a few more pockets of rest, that is such a game changer for an athlete. Like having 3, if we know that there's, our goal is to win Christmas Day. And I know the NFL's coming for us, right? but from Christmas Day, December, or is it Boxing Day, the 26th? I believe it's Boxing Day.
I think so.
From Boxing Day through New Year's, we're all gearing up for college football playoffs, right? And to me, I feel like that's a good opportunity to sort of build out rest because everyone knows where the sports fans' attention really is. Cool. We have the play-in, we have the playoffs, and those are so sequential. Maybe if there's an area where you can build out a little bit of more pockets of rest, an athlete going into a long stretch, getting 3 days, 4 days in between that does wonders for their body. And I know that's what the league is probably looking into, but there's so many components, that go into scheduling and just being able to pull off a season that times out well with other leagues. So this is just my personal perspective, building out. And, I'm very tuned into the WNBA as a former player. They've expanded we're in a 44 record number, 44 amount of games this year. Obviously, we add a new team in the Golden State Valkyries. We're going to add Portland and Toronto. They just announced Cleveland, Philly, and Detroit. So we'll go from 12 to 18 by, I believe, 2030.
Right.
That means even within the current CBA, you're expanding the number of games. You deal with Olympic years where you're condensing the amount of time. Like there's some things that I think need to be explored to protect players. Now, again, like I was on the Players Association, so like that's my brain. And then as someone who has done the injury, I don't know if this is all certified, but that was just my gut reaction to what I'm seeing.
Got it. Well, we will talk more WNBA with Chiney right after this break. Stick around. We are back with Chiney Ogwumike, the ESPN analyst for men's and women's pro and college hoops. We just talked a ton about the NBA. Let's now switch gears to the WNBA. You just mentioned the recent news of team expansion, 3 more teams coming in the coming years. What does this mean for the WNBA? How significant is it?
We're where the money resides. Finally. Like in my head, there's a dot, dot, dot. Finally. It took years of investment, partnership, obviously with the NBA. It took the superstardom of Caitlin Clark and the new young generation, really, and also like bringing in fans. Like all of these things were the perfect storm. We stand on the shoulders of those who came before us. This is coming off of recently retiring Candace Parker's jersey. Like it's been a long time coming, but now the expansion is here. And one thing that I do like, especially with our commissioner, Kathy Engelbert, I think the key is having the right ownership, having people truly invested for the long term, because ownership, the only way it pays off is not these short-term returns, like in 4 or 5 years. It's a generational asset. If you just look at what the Buss family has accomplished with the Los Angeles Lakers, like those are the blueprints for sports success. We're at that beginning moment where it's still, I know it sounds crazy for all of us, but like a decently affordable buy-in for certain owners, but knowing that the upside is growing exponentially quicker than we even imagined. You look at the valuations of the Golden State Valkyries being, $500 million, $500 million, so my thoughts on expansion, I'm really excited. I believe the players play, the investment, the new eyes, the history allow us to be at this moment where we can capitalize on it in the best way possible.
I'm so curious how you as a player or former player, did you always see this coming, this growth for the WNBA, or has it taken you by surprise?
I didn't always see it coming. I am right now living, and it sounds so corny, but like living out my dreams. I always go back to this story where last year, the W mid-season started deploying charters for the players. And I called NECA, my older sister, who's president of the Players Association. And NECA was like, Chiney, I really can't believe that we're actually on private planes. Like, this is something that I had already mentally blocked out of my head. Like, we won't benefit from this. The next generation will. Same type of call I got from her. Chiney, I walked into the Seattle Storm practice facility dedicated exclusively to us. And I can't believe I'm resting in a hyperbaric chamber right now and can go get meals from our chef. I can go get shots anytime that I want. So my answer to that is I am completely astonished to be in the present moment right now. Anybody that picked up a ball probably around my age or prior did not expect for it to happen the way it did currently. And so it's been amazing. It's also been really difficult because the passion for players, the passion for teams, the passion, palpable, but also it's a pressure cooker when it comes to rhetoric, because as women, we operate at the intersection of gender, race. Our league has been historically political, in advocacy of what we represent, given the primary demographics of what the WNBA is. And so and we are unapologetically ourselves. And at times that puts us in the line of fire, and that at times things that I say or we say as broadcasters or media is not perfect. But one thing I always go back to is, and it's something that Scottie Pippen told me when I was early on ESPN, it was the Jump Show with Rachel Nichols. He said, if they boo, it's okay. It shows you that they care. And there are more people that will celebrate the hard work you approach with the game with than they will hate. And I believe we're at the point where people are appreciating women's basketball more than they are hating on what they perceived it to be for a long time. And that's why we have this amazing growth, this moment, and all the good.
You mentioned Caitlin Clark earlier. Clearly, she's a factor in all this, but I think there's a healthy debate going on about how much of a factor is she? Is the star power spreading around beyond her? Where do you sit on this?
I always say that the rising tide lifts all boats. And Caitlin, the rise of women's basketball that she has helped usher in. I remember seeing the statistic about a professor who said that she has generated close to $1 billion for the WNBA. That rising tide helps advance everyone else. I know this personally. And like, I don't want to put too much tea out there, but I'll just speak generally. But like endorsements for players, for myself as a broadcaster with this women's basketball boom has grown. A lot of people that work in the business of the WNBA, I talk to a lot of brands, hear things, and they're like, this past few years have been the best for my business, So I believe just because you give flowers to one player doesn't mean you can't give flowers to other players, but everything becomes a debate. I think that there are so many factors, but the way that she drives appointment television is something that you can't replicate often, and it only happens once in a generation. The comp is Larry Bird and Magic Johnson created appointment television views, and the cinema of her collegiate run going up against Angel Reese and LSU, and like that cinema also fueled, so there's so many factors that helped, but what she has done as someone who works in TV and sees the numbers that average, like that changes the game for so many. But I do really think there's I could list off so many other things that I think help as well, but like the moment is here and you have to give her flowers.
And I think the moment has, to some degree, helped your moment as you expand your footprint. First, obviously you do work on a bunch of ESPN shows, but you just recently started a new series on Disney Plus that you referenced earlier called Vibe Check.
Yeah.
Sports from a female perspective. What's that been like? You've only been doing this now a week or two, right?
Yeah, it's been so much fun. And like you said, the way that I've seen it is women's basketball, we've always cared about it, real ones. Okay. But it also takes visionaries to pave the pathway for the success that we're experiencing today. And that's why I mentioned like Candace Parker's jersey being retired, like you get to see the visionaries that help pave the path for these players to get paid and recognized and celebrated. I see it also in broadcasts. It took a number of ESPN execs that got put on the assignment to be like, women's basketball, we should create a show, a pregame show, a WNBA countdown. We should really prioritize our NCAA tournament because the NCAA tournament is amazing. We should really work to make sure as many, we could be as inclusive of talent, even if Chiney's on the West Coast working NBA Today and NBA Countdown, can she come and also service women's basketball, which is something that I've been desperate to do. I just needed a boss to be like, give me the keys, give me the schedule. And all of these things, that vision to fight for me to be on that desk, that vision to take Elle Duncan off of SportsCenter to host that vision to have Andrea Carter do both men's and women's, college basketball and bring us together alongside the amazing Monica McNutts and Christine Williamsons. And, that choice being at the right place at the right time through the work that we have built credibility, and then also have this natural chemistry. And then on top of it, have the cinema, as I said, of the NCAA tournament, the UConns, the Paige Beckers, the Caitlins, Iowas, the LSUs, the Angel Reese, like the Notre Dames, to be all there. That's why I say it's a perfect storm, which highlighted the need to continue to invest in women's sports, which propelled us to be on stage with the amazing Bob Iger at Disney Upfronts to be the faces of what media can care about from what everyone just witnessed, to create a platform that's called Vibe Check that is taken from the segments that we used to do during the NCAA tournament and expanded now to include all women at ESPN. That's the full circle nature. But then the cool thing is that the studio is shot with a woman's touch.
What does that mean?
Women, so we got into the studio and it's like, we looked at it, we're like, oh, we got Oprah lighting, like the beautiful talk show, feminine, soft Oprah lighting. We get to talk about culture, things that women might be interested in, but also bring in the topics of the day. LeBron James opts into his $50 million deal. That is interesting to us. So, and also being at like places that matter and like this is a creative show because it's technically under the Disney umbrella, even though it's primarily ESPN talent. And that's the flexibility of the show and the versatility, being a little bit more out of the box per Disney brand, but also honing in on sports being the intersection of so much. So it's truly a vibe, and it is a product of all the amazing things that we have been able to experience recently. And it's just a wild ride, pun intended to Mr. Bob Iger, because that's his book. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yet another way that you're capitalizing on this perfect storm is you're getting into scripted television. You and your business partner producing a show for Peacock based on your own adventures in the WNBA. How did this even come together?
Speaking of investing in something before people see the vision. So long story short, even though you can tell I'm pretty long-winded, so apologies. In 2020, it was a very big year. That was the first recent year where the WNBA women's basketball got a huge spotlight because of the WNBA bubble and people being stuck at home during COVID, watching live sports, very happy that it was back on TV. But also we were at the point of an election year, an election cycle, and you saw what the WNBA did for advocacy, especially when it comes to social justice. Now, at that time, I was at ESPN. I could not play in the bubble because I was nursing an injury. And so I started working all day, every day. And I had on my phone line, my sister, my teammates, and I was just checking in. And so we had this documentary called 144 that captured, it was Sports Emmy nominated, that captured the season and the story of the season. And then after that, there's actually a really funny story, but I'm not going to spill my tea. But after that, because of the success of that, we were able to meet every group internally when it comes to Disney, FX, Hulu, ABC Signature, all those entertainment groups, because we accomplished something in the unscripted space. I had an idea I pitched them that had been like near and dear to my heart, and I still one day hope to accomplish. But in those meetings, in those pitches, people saw the dynamic of myself and my agent, and they said, "Hey, you guys are interesting," because I chose my agent when I was drafted number 1 at the age of 22. She was 24, fresh out of law school, studying for the bar, with no major clients. And by that, I say maybe she had one that was a friend of hers. But she thought out of the box and was like, "Chiney, everyone goes overseas. I want to be in charge of building you here in the US, And so I was like, "I like your vision. I like your hustle." So that is how we started working together. And that story became our pitch. And it was our authentic story. So we worked with great partners at Condé Nast, and obviously Peacock through NBC. And now we went and pitched, and they loved our pitch, and we got a scripted show. And I guess the point, and this happened like 2019, 2020. I guess the point that I'm saying is that like when it comes to women in sports, a lot of times people thought that we fit in a certain, box. But I realized through media that storytelling is truly powerful. From 144, the documentary, it's like, if we can get something to the big screen to change people's perceptions on the sport we care about, wouldn't that be the ultimate win? That's what drives conversations outside of the phenomenal play. We need to be different. My business partner, Allison Gaylor, her agency is called Disrupt the Game. We need to do something disruptive. And we were able to accomplish that. Now, I'm not going to lie. As an athlete who's used to seeing immediate results, you practice, you shoot, you see your free throw percentage go up. Like, entertainment is a different beast.
Oh, yeah.
Slow churner. It is a slow churner. But we have fabulous partners, and we have amazing showrunners. And it's so the pitch met the moment, and that's, because everything happened within the last year or so, year and a half, with the rise of everything that we're experiencing. But we were ready because we had already done the legwork. And so by the time we came and pitched, everyone's like, whoa, we love it. We love women's basketball, So I'm trying my best. We're at a very, very critical, key, awesome stage. And I'm excited for this project. And we have a couple more that hopefully will keep going and you guys will hear about soon.
So this is not just a one-off. You've got a vision for doing a whole bunch of things.
I have a vision, yes. And we have a prospective slate. We have another concept that we're very excited about. We have unscripted things in the cooker that hopefully people will hear about soon. But I'm very much someone that I like to walk before I run. And I feel like we're very much in an exciting, let's put it out there. I'd rather know it's concrete and it's real and it's happening and then be like, all right, y'all, this is the fruition of all the work. And so, but we have things coming, which I'm very, very excited about.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing that vision come together. Looking forward to seeing your coverage of the NBA and the WNBA in the coming weeks and months. Chiney, thanks for taking the time out to talk with me today.
Thank you for being a joy, a part of my day, and I'll do it anytime. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to leave us a review at Apple Podcasts or Amazon Music. We love to hear from listeners. Please go to variety.com and sign up for the free weekly Strictly Business newsletter. And don't forget to tune in next week for another episode of Strictly Business.